So, what if I told you that the secret to managing today's craziest, most complex projects isn't some hot new app or framework? What if it's actually a set of principles from a paper written way back in 1993? I know, it sounds a little old school, but stick with me, because this system is surprisingly modern and honestly incredibly powerful. Let's dive in.
We've all heard this quote, right? And usually it makes you think of a manager running around, putting out fires, solving problems as they pop up. But this paper has a totally different take. It argues that the most important obstacles, they're removed before a project even kicks off. How? By giving the team the one resource that matters most, a clear, solid process.
Ah, yeah, that's the real trick, isn't it? Kicking off a big, innovative project can feel like you're trying to navigate through a thick fog. And the authors of this paper knew that just winging it, that seat of the pants style of management, it just completely falls apart when things get really complex. You need a system. So, here's how we're going to break down their solution. First, we'll look at the chaos they were trying to manage. Then, we'll get into their pretty unique two-team system and something called the PADRE planning cycle. After that, we'll see how it all comes together to conquer complexity. And finally, pull out the big lessons for all of us today. Okay, first up, we have to talk about the one flawed belief that can absolutely sink a huge project before it even gets going. The paper gives this idea a name, and it's a great one: creationism. No, not that kind. This is the false belief that you can sit down, perfectly map out a huge, innovative project from start to finish, and then just make it happen. But we all know that's a fantasy, right? Your first try, your first big idea, it's almost always got some things wrong. So if that perfect plan approaches the problem, what's the solution? Well, it's not just chaos and making it up as you go, it's an evolutionary process. It's a system that's built to learn and adapt. It's about having a structure that allows for discovery and iteration, but without ever losing control. So, how do you actually build this evolutionary system? Well, the first pillar of the whole framework is all about organizing the people for maximum focus. And this is their core organizational idea, the two-team system. It's brilliant. You've got the guidance team, think managers and stakeholders. Their job is to run interference. They get the resources, deal with corporate politics, and basically create a protective bubble around the people doing the work. And that lets the project team do what they do best: just build, test, and deliver. And inside that protected bubble, the roles are crystal clear. You've got your implementer, who's actually building the thing, the domain specialist, who's the expert on what the users actually need, a technical reviewer for quality control, and here's a key detail: the team leader isn't a boss in the traditional sense. They're a facilitator, just keeping the process moving. So you've got your people organized, right? This two-team system is like the chassis of a high-performance car. But you need an engine to make it go, and that engine is something they call the PADRE planning cycle. At the highest level, the entire project follows this 5-step cycle. You plan, you get approval, you do the work, you review it, and then you evaluate. Seems simple enough. The team plans the whole project out in big stages, gets the go-ahead from the guidance team, and gets to work. But here's where it gets really clever. Let's zoom in on that do step. See, the entire project is broken down into these big stages, maybe 4 to 6 months long. And guess what? Each one of those stages gets its very own PADRE cycle. You plan the stage by breaking it into even smaller modules, get approval, and then you execute those modules. And we're going to zoom in just one last time. Each of those modules is a 2-week chunk of work that also follows the PADRE cycle. Does that sound familiar? It should. This is basically a modern agile sprint, described way back in 1993. You plan the work, get peer approval, do it, get it reviewed, and evaluate. It's like a fractal, this repeating pattern that creates a spiral of constant progress. So what's the point of this whole nested, repeating process? Well, it's all about taking these huge, intimidating projects and making them genuinely manageable. It is a very specific strategy for conquering complexity. This whole structure gives the team a set of powerful weapons. Divide and conquer makes work predictable. The spiral life cycle means you always have something that works. You're getting user feedback constantly, and peer reviews and testing are just baked right into every single 2-week cycle, so you catch mistakes when they're small and cheap to fix. Now, check this out. This is one of the most radical ideas in the whole paper. They recommend you spend only 1/3 of your time on the main task, like the actual coding. Another third should be dedicated to testing and revision. And the final third is for everything else. I mean, that completely reframes where quality actually comes from. It's not an afterthought. It's a huge part of the work itself. Okay, let's bring it all home. What can we, working on projects today, actually learn from this framework that's now 30 years old? Well, the principles are just timeless. Break big problems into small 2-week chunks. Build ownership by getting the whole team involved in designing how you work. Iterate on everything, not just the product, but your requirements, and communicate constantly. But my favorite might be this last one. Treat your process as its own product, something you are always trying to improve.
And that idea leads to this final, powerful quote from the paper. A good process isn't some dusty binder sitting on a shelf. It's alive. It's something the team talks about, debates, and changes. It evolves. Because how you work is every bit as important as what you're working on. So I'll just leave you with this one question to think about. Is your team's process a tool that helps you adapt and evolve, or is it just a rigid set of rules set in stone? It's definitely something worth thinking